so much for coming today. I really appreciate that. I was late and we had to reschedule, but you have been very forgiving, so thank you very much. Would you mind just introducing yourself to everybody for me, please?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for the invite to be here. It's great. I'm looking forward to where this goes today. I'm Andrew Batt and I am based in Crawley, West Sussex in the UK.
Fantastic. I'm sure that you have many, many more things to tell us about yourself, Andrew. Come on. tell us about
Okay, so I've been running my own businesses since I was 18 because no one would give me a job at 18 when I finished school. So I figured if I can't get a job, then I might as well create one. So set up a business. And then ever since then, I've been running different businesses throughout my life. I have worked for some other people in various different industries. And the main bulk of my time now is taken up in the property world, because I got into property investing with my younger brother and my mum in 1999. We did what everyone says you shouldn't do. We bought abroad, but I used to live in the French Alps, so it made sense to buy there. So we bought a little flat together, which we affectionately called Chateau Shoebox, because it was 27 meters squared, the entire internal measurement, and we had a 27 meter square balcony as well. So the balcony was outside, was as big as inside, and it was literally a shoebox.
Well, with a name like that, did that bring good marketing opportunities? Was that a good name?
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to then, it was pre all kind of internet sales and marketing, social media, all of that stuff. So all of our marketing was kind of on word of mouth, and we basically had loads of friends coming to stay. And then they had friends of friends, that's how we'd get our business through. So we ended up running holiday lets and serviced accommodation before they were kind of called that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, we had that for 3 years, and then my brother went off to uni in Oxford, and he wanted to buy a house up there, but obviously he'd got money tied up, because this was the other thing. We didn't know it at the time, but that was our first ever joint venture.
Yeah.
So we JV'd with each other and didn't realise it until recently, when we had some more training. Went, oh, okay, it's called something, is it?
Yeah.
So yeah, he wanted to get out, and I didn't have the money at the time to buy him out. Neither did my mum. And my mum said, "Oh, I'm getting a bit tired of us having to run it, because it's in another country. We've got to deal with French bank accounts, insurances. Each year we had to go out there for a meeting." With all the other residents, because it was quite a big block, which was fine, and we did, but it's a lot more hassle when you're running busy lives back here. So I said, well, look, I don't think we should sell, because I think in the next 12 months the property market in the Alps is going to go bananas. I said, but I can't put my finger on it. I've just got a feeling that it's going to happen. And I said, but we're in this together, take a vote on it. If you guys vote 2 against 1, then we sell it. So that's what happened. We ended up selling it to a friend for what we paid for it, because literally the French market's very different from the UK market.
Okay.
Or it certainly was at the time anyway. So we sold it on. She then sold it a year later, having made another £100,000 on it, because the property market went ballistic out there.
That must have hurt.
Yeah. But think about it, on a 27 meter square flat, it's tiny thing. So it hurt at the time, and I wasn't very happy because I was a lot younger then. It didn't cause any problems between us, but I was just like, I told you so. But my brother bought a residential place in Oxford. It was a 3-bed end of terrace, and because of the way it was, the layout, it lent itself to actually converting it into an HMO. Again, they weren't called HMOs back then, so we did a resi to HMO conversion without even realising it. And
so ahead of your time.
Again, a lot of it. Sorry.
So ahead of your time on SA and HMO. Well done.
I know, it's just random. It's really random. But the other thing is that back then there wasn't as much legislation involved. So obviously with HMOs now, you need fire doors. There's all kinds of fire safety systems. There's fire blankets, extinguishers. you know, security lighting, emergency exits, XYZ. Back then, it was the Wild West. You could do what you wanted. There wasn't even Article 4 stuff banding about back then. So putting, you know, with councils putting restrictions on property. So we did this conversion, but we always have dealt with properties with the view that if we couldn't live where we were living and we had to move into one of our rental properties, would we live there? So it kind of kept us accountable not to just do the bare minimum and just shove a tenant in and, you know, and start taking the money, which unfortunately a lot of landlords did back then and still do now. But our view was that if we lost everything tomorrow and we had to move into one of the rentals, would we be happy living there? As long as the answer was always yes, then we know that we'd done it to a decent level. And we've always had very few tenant turnovers. So most tenants that have left any of our properties, it's because their circumstances have changed. So they've moved away because of family or because of work commitments, never because they didn't want to live there anymore. So which is great, and that's, well, partly that's down to us trying to be nice, reasonable landlords and landladies, but the other thing is that we make nice places for people to live in. So yeah, we did this conversion. We put fire blankets in the kitchen. We made sure there was a fire hydrant. We didn't put any fire doors in because it wasn't really a thing back then. No one really knew about it, or if you did, it was very much reserved to kind of commercial buildings. So it, you know, the commercial to resi was very separated, whereas now there's a bit more of a kind of crossover. And your HMOs almost actually sit in the middle, where it's kind of a residential property, but you're running it commercially. So that's partly where some of these rules and regs have come in, and the legislation. So
this house that your brother bought, right, with the money that he'd taken out after you sold in the Alps, is that right? So
yeah.
wasn't the intention that he was going to live in this house, but then he turned it into HMO?
No, his plan was to live in it and turn it into an HMO so that he could get a bunch of his other mates to live together with him.
Makes sense.
And what happened, because I'd been to uni before my brother, my best mate and I at the time had got a house together that was a 2-bedder, and I wanted to buy a place. I went to uni in Norwich, and I wanted to buy a place in a park called the Golden Triangle, which was where all the students were. And at the time I had some extra cash, and I had enough to buy outright, but sorry, just shy of having enough to buy outright. But because I've been living abroad beforehand in the Alps, I was classed as a tax exile because of the tax laws back then. I was living 6 months in the UK, 6 months in the French Alps, and I couldn't get a mortgage because I hadn't been resident for so long. So, and I couldn't borrow the money from anywhere else, the banks, for the same reason. You know, my parents didn't have any money to borrow from. I didn't have any other family or friends I could try and borrow it from. So it kind of put me in a rut. So that's why eventually we'd gone down the route of buying the place in France. But what I wanted to do was buy a place, rent it out to students, and it would then pay for me and my best mate Tank to pay for our accommodation. So it would mean that we were living there for free. So I could see the business concept of it all, and all the kind of bonuses from doing stuff around property. But I just had this kind of blocker that I couldn't get past. So that's where I went into joining in with my mum and my brother, because by that time, being that age, I'd nuked through a load of cash as well. So I was running out of the cash that I had, and I had to park it somewhere to stop me spending it. But yeah, we did the resi conversion with my brother. He got that sorted. My mum bought another place locally, so she's now still got those 2 buy-to-lets that are just set and forget. And then I ended up buying a place in the West Country because my grandmother lived in one of my mum's houses, and she wanted to move nearer to the rest of the family in the West Country as she was retiring, and the whole kind of demographic had changed where she lived. So I said to my mum, well, look, if I buy somewhere in Cornwall, we can buy somewhere that's a wreck, do it up so I can force the appreciation, and I can actually try and earn back some of the money that I'd blown on my lifestyle at the time. and we can get my grandmother moved down there. It gets her out of my mum's house where she's paying peppercorn rent. I mean, it was literally peanuts. And you can get a tenant in there paying, you know, market value. So everyone wins at every route. So that's what we did. And I've still got that property in the West Country today, which my grandmother no longer lives in it because she's since departed. But I've got a young couple in there that are in their early 20s and they love it and they're making it their home. So yeah, it's kind of set and forget, really.
Nice. I think that's the whole, for me, set and forget is what I want to do with property. I don't want to be really managing lots of things, because people, when you do the entry to property, there's kind of two main routes that a lot of people take, which are like the rent to rent or the sourcing. And rent to rent is a lot about management, which I don't really want to do. Well, it's all management. And sourcing, I've tried my hand at sourcing and I don't think I'm very good at that, to be honest. But, you know, we are in a boom, so maybe I would be at a different time. What was I going to say? So you started your own business when you were 18. That wasn't to do with the property, was it? Was that something else?
I set up, so my parents at the time had an acre garden. So, and it has hedges around it ranging between 6 foot high and up to 18 feet high, because the house was on a bit of a hill. So my dad had an electric a petrol hedge cutter. We had a big mower, all kinds of gardening paraphernalia that we needed. But he was always busy running his own business. And my mum was running her own business. And my brother and I used to help at weekends when we were back from school. And it got me thinking, well, why don't I, you know, I said to him, look, I can't get a job. Do you want me to take on the gardening for a bit of pocket money? So rather than paying someone else to come in and do the gardening, you can pay me, which is helping me out. I can do it. I know the garden anyway. Excuse me. And I said, and it frees up your time to do other stuff. So my dad's like, yeah, that's great. I said, look, you go to work in the morning, the grass needs cutting. You come back from home at work and there's all these nice straight lines in the grass ready for you to come home and have a cup of tea or a gin and tonic, whichever you want, on the patio. So he's like, yeah, all right, done. And I said, well, look, the other thing is I think there's going to be loads of other people around where we live, because this was in the heart of East Sussex. So it's just like, you know, countryside everywhere, and loads of other people with kind of big gardens that need maintaining. And I said, look, I've looked through the Friday ad, because again, this was pre-internet. And I said, there's loads of people that are all kind of tree surgeons charging £50 an hour, £15 an hour. Yeah. And which was a lot of money. I mean, I'm going back, you know, 20 odd years, 20 plus years. Yeah. And I said to him, look, you know, I'm gonna put an ad in the Friday ad and just say that I'm going to give free quotes and I'm going to charge £10 an hour, or £7.50 if I'm using your machinery and your equipment, your petrol, all the rest of it. And over a 2-week advertising period, by the end of the 2 weeks, I was booked for the whole 6 months of the summer.
Wow, that's good. For people who might be listening to this, who might be younger, how much do you reckon £7.50 would be worth in current money? I know that's a bit of a guess, but
yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't even know that.
20 years, it's probably about, I'd say 20 quid.
Yeah, I normally work it out on the price of a Mars bar, what a Mars bar was back then and what it is now.
Okay, let's do that. How much was a Mars bar then?
I think a Mars bar back then was 12p.
Wow, and I think they're about 80p now.
Yeah, so
that's I can't do maths in my head, but it's quite a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so, but that's inflation for you, right?
Yeah, so, exactly.
But yeah, so it was. I'd got this all sorted, and then one of my mates, he was about to go out to do some of his gap year, and he said, "Oh no, sorry, he'd done his." Let me think about this. What was it? The second year, one of my mates had done his gap year in the States, and he'd got a window in the summer before he started uni that September. And by this stage, I was into living UK and France, so I was doing ski seasons in the winter and France in the summers. So he said to me, "Oh, do you want to do it together?" And I was like, Yeah, that's a good idea actually, because I can get the gardens done twice as fast, which means we can do twice as much, which means we can get more business, and also it means that I can potentially take on more clients. So, and at the time, all I was thinking at that age, I was just chasing the money, because it was all about trying to earn as much money as quickly as possible so that I could go out to the Alps and spend it again.
Yeah.
And then I spent the time in the Alps earning money doing ski instructing, snowboard instructing, bar work, restaurant work, all that kind of stuff, earning the money so that I could come back and spend it in the UK. Just ridiculous looking back on it now, but I was loving it and I was living the dream at the time. So
You were living the dream very early on. That
I
list,
was.
your bucket list as you got older, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I was basically living a champagne lifestyle on beer money.
Yeah.
That's how I describe it. But yeah, so it was great. So kind of went into business with him, and that was the first. It was the first kind of JV that I did with someone that I didn't really do any due diligence on. He was a mate of a mate, and that was the first time I got my fingers burnt in a JV partnership.
Can you tell us what happened, or would you rather?
Yeah, so we by this stage my dad had bought a ride-on mower because he thought he'd like one, and so I said to him, well, look, let me use that as well, and obviously if we break it, we'll fix it and service it and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So we went to this client's house that my business partner knew, and basically they had a really, really long, beautiful driveway, and they'd got kind of orchards down the side, so like big apple trees and stuff, and pear trees and stuff like that. And then out the back, it was all kind of manicured, nice looking country house gardens type of thing. So think of National Trust gardens basically in someone's garden. That's how immaculate.
I want one of those gardens. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, well that's how immaculate it was, right? So we got there and it's like, right, well, it makes sense to have the ride on out the front because it's a massive area, and it just needs the grass cutting down. It doesn't need anything, because it's essentially like a meadow orchard area. And I said, well, I'll go out the back and I'll put all the nice straight lines in the back with the roller mower. But I said to him, look, one thing, because I've got a bit more experience doing the gardening than him, I said, look, one thing to do is to walk through the whole orchard, especially close to the apple trees, because what you find with apple trees is that the roots can actually come out of the ground and then back in again. Okay. And when you've got a ride-on mower with a blade spinning round, cutting the grass, if you hit one of those roots, it can cause problems.
To the mower or to the tree?
Sorry?
To the mower or to the tree, would it cause?
Both. So, because you can end up slicing a bit of a root off, which exposes it to the elements, and the whole idea of the bark around the tree is that it protects the tree. So one, it's no good if you do that from the tree's point of view, because you could essentially kill the tree, and it's a fruit tree as well. And two, you could destroy a very expensive ride-on mower, because I think at the time it's about an £800 or £1,000 mower. So again, you're looking at like, it would be thousands now, the equivalent, like £2,000 mower. So he said, yeah, and I got this, yeah. And I was thinking at the time, he's just yeah-ing me like a kid does. And they're not really paying attention. Like, with your job, when you speak to a child and you're trying to get them to pay attention and they go, yeah, miss, you know that they're going to turn around, run off, they haven't listened to a word you said, or it's gone in one.
Go away, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've gone, right, well, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But to give you a bit of a backstory, he went to the States and he was working in Silicon Valley at the time. And it was very much back then, the attitude of American business was get in, do the job, get the cash and get out. That, there was none of this kind of service related in the industry that he was looking at going into. It was, you just do the deal and then it's off, do the next deal, it's off. And your clients are on this kind of treadmill. And that, when they get off at the end, they just fall off, and you don't care if they want to get back on again, then you treat them the same. And whereas obviously we're a lot more service based, and it's more about making sure that the client has a great journey, and actually instead of getting off the treadmill, they just walk around and get back on again, and you want to repeat business, right? So anyway, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I start going, doing all these lines, and then the bag fills up, so I stop the bag and I'm like, I can't hear a mower. Oh, maybe he's emptying the bags in the mower already because it fills up quite quick. Fair enough. Go back, do some more of these things. And all of a sudden, out the corner of my eye, I see him walking towards me. I'm like, there is no way that he has finished cutting that lot that fast and saying, right, what's next? So I pull it off and he said, oh, I've got a bit of a problem. I was like, right. And he said, you probably want to come and have a look. The mower stopped. And I'm like, right. So I went back and looked at it and tried to turn the mower over and it just clunked. And I knew because so another bit of my background is I used to work on race cars. My dad raced cars. We actually ended up building 3 cars as well. We built 3 kit
such
cars.
a dream life, Andrew. You've done all this really cool. I need to hang out with you. That's what I need to do.
I'm very fortunate that I've always taken opportunities when they've come to me, or tried to, because you can't take every opportunity, right, that comes to you, because you just get overwhelmed and you'll just end up doing nothing. But all the stuff that I've been drawn to, I've tried to take opportunities. So yeah, I've got this kind of engineering background anyway. And I was like, the engine seized. So I got off the mower and I walked back, and literally 4 meters behind where he'd cut, I could see in the grass this root that had literally been sliced off. And what he'd done was he'd hit the root with the mower and he'd kept going. He just pushed the accelerator harder. And what it had done is that there was so much force from the root, from the blade trying to break through the root. And bear in mind, the blade's designed to cut grass, not a tree. That's what a chainsaw's for.
Yeah.
So it seized the whole engine. That was 800 quid, and we had to have a new engine. Now, he said to him, oh, well, look, I'm sure your dad will hook us up. And I was like, no, we're in a partnership. It's 50-50, and it's nothing to do with my dad. You and I have got to pay for that new engine. So I sat there and sat firm. I said, 400 quid. I said, either you give me the 400 quid or it's coming out of your wages for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it was. Mm. And so anyway, he had the cash lying around anyway. So he gave me the 400 quid. And luckily, my dad was like, I think he felt sorry for me getting really stitched up very early on. And so he lent me the money because I didn't have the 400 quid because I was living hand to mouth at the time anyway, because I just couldn't help myself. So I eventually paid that back off him later on in the year. But I then decided that the following year, I wasn't going to have a partner. I was going to do it on my own. But what I'd do is I'd subby anyone that wanted to work with me. I'd get them in on a subcontract basis. So I wasn't JVing with anyone. I'm in charge. It's my responsibility. If I get someone like him to work with me and they mess up, that's on me. Mm-hmm. It was just, I ended up doing the lion's share of the work in the partnership. Mm-hmm. And he just turned up, did what he was told, and went again. And I sat there and thought, I'm just employing this guy, and we're supposed to be partners. And they're very different things. So the next year I came back, and I'd actually managed to hit it at exactly the right time when a bunch of my other mates were all on uni holidays. Mm-hmm. And one of my mates' dads was a fairly big time developer in the southeast, and he was buying up properties left, right, and centre. But they all had massive gardens that needed maintaining. They needed turf laying and all this stuff. So I ended up employing both his sons and about half a dozen other mates, and I was running 3 different sites, and we got all the gardening contracts for all of these places. And that was just brilliant. So that was my first kind of foray into having staff without having to actually have them. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite a kind of, looking back on it, I did quite a lot in a short period of time back then. But lots of learnings, mostly the hard way.
Yeah, I mean, they say it's better to learn from other people, but I think in reality, we don't acknowledge things as much until they happen to us. I could be wrong. Some people are smarter than me, maybe. But
I think it's I made myself a couple of rules when I was younger, and one of them was that I don't ever mind making a mistake or getting something wrong, but I only ever want to do it once. Yeah. Because if I do it twice, I didn't learn from my mistake. And so far, I've got a wooden desk, so I'm touching wood. I haven't shirked on that deal with myself because I've never made the same mistake twice. Yeah. So, but I think there's a lot of merit and a lot of value in learning from other people's mistakes, but I think you have to have had the pain of making your own mistakes, because it also teaches you how to find solutions and how to find workarounds. So it's the kind of combination of everything. I think if someone wants to, everyone wants to get to places quick, right? Everyone wants the fastest route. They want the easiest route. They want the route that gives them the most success. And obviously success is a whole nother story because people view that in different ways.
Mhm.
But keeping it general on success, it's great to get there fast. But I've seen people that have grown their businesses very, very quickly with no business experience. And after 12 months, the whole business is starting to implode because they've had this if you imagine a graph, they've had this super speedy vertical graph to success. But the trouble with any graph like that is that when something goes wrong, it goes dramatically wrong, and then you go very, very sharply down again.
Mhm.
And it's another way of explaining it is like a pendulum effect. So you on a pendulum, you swing from one extreme to the other, and the best place to operate is actually in the center, and just with it just teetering a little bit. So you have some fails, some wins, but generally you always move forward. Whereas when you're going from one extreme to the other, one day you're all happy and smiley, and you're doing all these deals, everything's going well, and then the next day everything's fallen apart because someone's pulled out of this deal, or they've shafted you there, or a JV partnership's gone wrong, and you're just having these massive highs and lows, and it becomes really, really exhausting.
Yeah.
So I think you need to go through some of those pain points so that you start to recognize signs early. You also put other systems in place to try and protect you or protect the people you're working with. So I think you need to go through it. Like you said, you need to go through some bits of pain.
Yeah.
And you don't wish it on anyone, right? Because, I've now, with my fiance, I've inherited 2 stepsons, or almost stepsons. When I'm married, they'll be stepsons. But I want to create the easiest route for them to achieve. But I also know that can be detrimental.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they're not learning. And if I just hand stuff to them and make things easy. So, the youngest, he had a puncture in his tire. And I said, well, I can change it for you. He's like, great. And I said, but I'm not going to. I'll show you how to change it, the first one. And then the second one, I'll be there with you and you can change it, so that he's learning how to do it. Because I'm not going to be here forever. Neither's his mum. So, there's a responsibility to teach younger people how to cope on their own so that they're ready for it as and when that day arrives.
I would definitely agree. And I would say, maybe I'm wrong, but I think this current generation of young people do quite little for themselves. I've noticed that the amount of young people I talk to, they don't know, like, they don't do any washing up, they don't wash their own clothes, they don't do anything like that, which I find interesting considering, I don't know, 40 years ago, you would possibly have the mother at home with the children. So then you'd maybe expect her to do all that stuff. Whereas now, most of the time, you've got 2 parents out working. So if the 2 parents are out working and the child doesn't know how to do that stuff, I don't know how anything's getting done in the house.
Yeah, exactly. And well, what happens is the child goes to bed and then you magically go to bed later and clean it all, or you get up earlier and clean it all, and they swan down and go, oh, it looks lovely, nice and clean here. And
Yes.
so, I mean, I'm very fortunate. Cattie's done that with the boys because she was a single parent for a number of years, and she wanted them to study really hard at school to go to university, which they're both doing. One's almost finished and the other one's just started uni.
Mm-hmm.
And she's facilitated that, so they didn't have to do loads of washing and loads of ironing and hoovering, and she made them always clean their own rooms so that they understood the importance of keeping that, and she did the rest of the house. And now obviously we all muck in, and the same with the washing up. Just every now and again she'd get them to do it so that they knew about it and knew how to do it, but she wanted to pull all that aside so that they could focus on their work, which they have done, and they've both gone to good unis, and they're doing really well, both of them. So it's how that trade-off works. Just before the youngest went to uni, he started getting a book together going, oh, I need to learn how to cook because I'm going to have to do it for myself. But he came to us with it. So Cathy gave him a few recipes, and he'd got a week's worth of recipes. And obviously, you know, with these beautiful devices, phones and Google, you know, you can teach yourself to cook very quickly. So, but yeah, you're right. There are a lot of their generation that don't know how to do things, and it's a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, and I was going to say that no matter when you move out, actually, no matter what you think you've learned before, when you move out, it would always be a shock of the things you actually have to do to run a house. But yeah, other things, like you say, like changing a tire, or cutting the grass, washing the car. I don't know, I'm trying to think, what other things did I do as a kid? I loved making things, so maybe that was what it was, but I just used to make up games to play, whereas young people now are like waiting for you to give them, this is what you can do right now. Like, I don't know, I feel like creativity is being lost quite a lot because so much is given on a plate. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
Well, they're a lot of the time they're waiting for you to ask them. So you or I at some point would go, oh, I'll just do the washing up so it's done, so my other half doesn't have to do it, because they're always doing it. Or I'll wash the bathroom so they don't have to do it, or I'll do the cooking, or XYZ, whatever it is, and vice versa, you know, either way around. But their generation, you have to ask them, and they're like, look, just ask me for help. It's like, yeah, that's fine, but what we're also trying to say to you is try and think about doing something for someone else just randomly. And I was actually on a kind of networking / work meeting the other night, and someone said this, the lady that was on the call said, I like to make someone smile every day. And I thought that's brilliant, and it made me chuckle. And we actually connected together because and she reached out to me because I said something that she really liked, and she said, oh, it'd be great to have a chat and all the rest of it. So I'm due to have a chat with her about it. But that's something that I used to do a lot of as well, is want to make someone smile. So because it's just do something for someone else. Doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to save the world on your own, which is another thing I used to try and do. And I've now realized that there's a lot more legs in working collectively. So but again, you learn that, right? So that comes from learning. So I was doing all that stuff on my own, and now I do a lot of work with multiple people, and we're getting a lot more achieved by working together. So
that's an example of something that you're working on now with other people.
So most of it is business related because I can't help myself because I love doing business stuff. So we've got one of our property companies as a property management company, and I met another couple last year. Just got chatting to them, ended up having dinner with them at a kind of networking, again, another networking event. Turns out that they were into motorbikes and cars like we are. They were big on family, which we're big on. They were running a very successful business a bit further down the coast from us. And they said, oh, we've got family where you're. So my mum and dad live in Eastbourne. And they said, oh, we've got a load of family up there, and, you know, it might be worth us having a chat about doing some work together because we'd be interested. And the other thing that we've got is that they recognised that I had skills that they're not so strong on. And I recognised when I was talking to them that they've got skills that I'm not as strong on. So I was like, well, that's great, because where we're each weaker, we can lift each other up. So we basically set up this JV partnership with myself, Cathy, and this other couple. And we did a thing called the Wealth Dynamics test, which is kind of an entrepreneurial test, which I don't know if you've done yours, but, you know, quite a few of us in the property world have done them. So it turns out that me and the other guy's wife are both in the same area, and Cathy and the husband are in the same area. So we basically all bicker between us, taking the mickey out of each other, saying, well, you know, me and your wife leave a wake of destruction, and Cathy and the husband basically are scurrying behind us, clearing all our mess up. So it's quite funny. But so that's one. We've got another one where I'm looking at actually partnering. So that's kind of managing property. We've got another couple of partnerships on the go where we're actually looking to purchase properties. So, and we're literally, my next week is trying to get everything together with these guys for a offer to be put in on Friday, because that's when we've got till Friday lunchtime to put an offer in. So, but again, we've seen this property last week. We've got less than a week to assess everything, get everything in place. And the last property that we were looking at buying ourselves, we spent 2 months from first viewing, put an offer in an hour later, and it was another 2 months of back and forth and getting all the documents everywhere that everyone needed. And it's a massive process. And we were doing all of that between two of us. Now we've got to do that whole lot within 7 days, but there are now 3 of us. So we've literally got different tasks assigned for each of us so that we can basically be working all at the same time. And we'll get it done because we're under the pressure to do it. So everything else will just have to wait. But having those partnerships, it enables you to work faster. It enables you to get more done in less time. You can bounce ideas off each other because you all have different skill sets. And you halve the costing involved, right? So especially for us in the south of the country, it's expensive to buy property here. So you know, if you're buying a property and you've got to leave, I don't know, say 70 or 80,000 pounds in a deal, it's a lot of money to leave into a property deal for a period of time before you can then refinance it back out. But if you've got a partnership where you're doing everything 50-50, then you're only leaving 40,000 in that deal. But the other beauty we've got here in the southeast is that it's, yeah, historically we've had good capital uplift. So we could buy one property and get the uplift from one property by JVing with someone else and slightly diluting that. We could buy one property and then we'll have enough actually that we could all JV and buy a second property. So now we've got 2 properties that are raising with inflation, and the way property prices are going and all the rest of it. Obviously, that only works if you're buying long term, which we all are. We're buying to hold because we're all kind of legacy building and you know, for our future generations. So we get the fun of building it, and then I spoke to one of my dad's friends who was a bursar, a very clever finance guy, a few years back, and he said you go in cycles of 3 with family money. So the first cycle of the family, they make a lot of money. The second cycle of the family invest it really wisely because they've seen how hard it is to work and earn that money. And then the third cycle of the family generally spends it all, and it hits rock bottom again, and then it goes back to the beginning of the cycle. And we've actually noticed it in a few different families that we know. And actually we experienced it in our family. My great grandmother absolutely destroyed the family wealth. Going back in my history, the family were extremely wealthy, and she basically destroyed the lot. In the 50s, she had, I think it was 12 staff for a family home in 1950. And she had 2 Rolls Royces with her chauffeurs. It's just balmy. I can't even compute that. It just is. I can't even imagine it. It's just crazy. But she destroyed the lot, and my dad ended up refloating everything, and she left him with the bankrupt business that he then led on to rebuild and run for 30 years before he sold it when he retired. So it's just mad. And we you know, my brother and I have seen how hard my parents worked, both of them, to provide us with opportunities as well as themselves, and that's where our kind of work ethos comes. So you know, I've spoken to a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs or want to run their own businesses, and they're saying, you know, what do you do for days off? And I said, I don't have any. And they're like, what? And I said, yeah, if you're running your own business, you never have a day off. You have a day different, but you never have a day off, because you're running. You know, before mobile phones, I used to sleep with a notepad next to my bed, because I'd wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and out of nothing, I'd be like, oh, I've got this idea for this work or this job or for another business. And I'd write it down. You know, it's not a very healthy way to live. And fortunately now I've restructured that. So I don't live like that anymore. But, and again, learning from mistakes, some of my previous businesses, by me physically working 7 days a week, it cost me the relationship, which kind of looking back on now, I'm happy because I'm now with, you know, I'm with Cassie and I'm with the person that I really have been looking for 20 years. So, but I'm very mindful of my time. So, you know, we book out family time to have together, because it is important. But again, I learned from my mistakes, right? So I'm not making the same one twice.
Yeah, that's good. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about, because I know some people watching this might be thinking of starting like a Facebook group or something, and I know that you have one. Could you just talk a little bit about that, why you set it up and how you set it up?
Yeah, so the Facebook group's called the Business Driven Community because I went and did a lot of property training a couple of years ago, and that is still ongoing now with various different mentorships and VIP programs. And all of us in the property world, as you know as well, we're taught to start with the end in mind. So you always look at what a property will cost and then work backwards to figure out how much it's worth, etc. And everyone sat in these rooms going, yeah, I get that. And everyone wants to run their property business and they want to have a property business. They want to have their own business anyway. And I'm sat there going, but everyone is completely blinkered on property because, you know, you're all in a room learning about property specific things, but it's a property business and the clues are always in front of us. And you need to start with end in mind. That's what you need to do. But the end is business. So you need to start with the business. And the other thing is that I said to a few other people, they're like, oh, you know, I want to get into this property business. I'm like, it's all about the business because the property is just what you're in the business of. They need to flip it around the other way. So yes, you need to have, you know, decent property training or mentors or both, or work with people that have got that experience and learn from them. But the business was a massive kind of there seemed to be a really big disconnect there with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, even just talking about limited companies, people were freaking out about trying to set up a limited company, which in actual fact it's not that difficult. I take it for granted because I've set a load up in the past and I have done recently, and I just get on and do it because I know how to do it. And actually, funny enough, we're just getting a load of training together to try and help people so that they can do it themselves. But it stops people in their tracks. So when most people get overwhelmed, they stop because they become overwhelmed, right? They can't cope. So the first reaction for us is to stop doing whatever we're doing and for the fear to kick in, and then you have to figure out how to get round it, over it, under it, or through it. So I wanted to set this. I always had it in the back of my mind to set it up. So I was then doing a challenge through so the property training company that I go to, like, you know, is Progressive Property. They were happening to run a challenge, a 7-day challenge. And during the challenge, they mentioned a couple of things. One, if you can volunteer with anyone to help out, get involved and do it. And I thought, great, I've got a brilliant idea. I'm going to speak to one of the people that runs one of the networking events, the property networking event. So I did that, and now I volunteer, as you know, at PPN Stratford for mostly all Islam. So, and it's great. I've learned so much. I've been able to help them as well. So it's a kind of mutual partnership there. But the other thing was set up a Facebook group. So I was like, okay, well, that sounds like a bit of a giggle. What the hell am I going to do? And I thought, I'm going to set one up about business, because everyone's setting up what they're doing with their niche or what they're doing specifically in property. And I thought, but I'm just going to be doing the same as a lot of other people. And I'm already in the property world. I'm involved in the property world, but there's a lot of people that I can see have got real capabilities of being successful, but they're petrified of the business side of it. You know, they don't know about accountants, about tax laws, about legislation, and you don't need to know about all of it. That's why you outsource and you get people to help you along the way, right? So that's why I originally set it up. And then I started to think, I'm going to get in trouble here, because if I build this group up big enough, I'm not going to be able to cope with the workload. So reached out to another friend who I knew was really good with business systems. And we've got a couple of mutual friends that said, look, come on, you two, you need to be chatting together. And we said, yeah, you're right. Actually, we started chatting, and now we speak every Monday of the week. We have a meeting just around the group. So we're trying to build up this free group for everyone to come into. I also have seen that a lot of people have to pitch their business and they're petrified of doing it. So we let people pitch every Friday. So whatever you want to pitch, whether it's like for you a podcast or a YouTube channel, or whether it's your own property business, sourcing business, any business, graphic designer, it doesn't matter what you are, just any business, because everyone needs help in different areas of their business. So we set it up like that, and we're just trying to grow that up. We're going to be doing some training to help people, because obviously what John and I have got to be mindful of is our time. You know, we've got over 50 years collectively of business experience together, in different industries and in different aspects and different areas. So it's a hell of a lot that we can give to everyone, but it takes a long time to get a lot of information together. But the main reason I wanted to have that group there is so that people can connect with each other. So we've got people in the group that can do websites, for example. We've got mortgage advisors. We've got someone who does these stickers actually that are behind me. You know, they do vinyl stuff. They do, there you go, look, cups, all that kind of stuff. So, and there's people working within the group together. But the thing is that we don't just open it to anyone. So everyone has to kind of answer a few questions. So it's a bit more of a closed group. So people are a bit more protected in there. That's what we're trying to achieve anyway. So,
and how many
so far so good.
at the moment?
255. This isn't pre-prepped. I just happened to look there this morning and I saw it. So that's why I know.
And how long have you had it open?
We've had it open I started this in October last year, but I wasn't really doing much with it until the beginning of this year.
Well, that's good. I started mine last August, and I think I've got 330. So you're doing I'd say we're on par. We're both doing all right.
Yeah, but this is the thing, right? So I spoke to other people about running groups and to try and find out what problems they'd come across or what they were doing really well and they were finding really worked. And I spoke to one guy and he set a group up and he literally opened the floodgates and said it's a free for all, jump in. And he got the group up to 5,000 members very quickly, which is great, right? And it's a you know, a kind of entrepreneurial businessy type of group. And I said, oh, that's amazing, thinking, wow, 5,000, right? You're thinking that's brilliant. That sounds great because we're all number obsessed. And he said, yeah, but, and I was like, okay, what's the but? And he said, I hardly go in it now because I created a monster. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I let it open to anyone. So there's been bullying in there. There's been people, you know, writing nasty posts or, you know, trying to slap people down for trying to further themselves, you know, all the kind of trolling basically. And he said, I've had to police that and get other people to help us police it. And he said, it's a nightmare. And he said, I kind of want to wash my hands of the whole thing. And I thought that's such a shame because he had the best intentions starting it up.
Yeah.
But because he's just jumped straight in without kind of doing a bit more research. And he said, my advice to you is literally, you know, we almost handpick so this is the other thing. This is how I ran one of my businesses for 15 years. So I ran a classic and racing car transport company. So I used to transport those all over Europe and the UK for over a decade. I drove 1 million miles in 10 years. And all of my business was referral. I didn't advertise. I had a website, but I didn't advertise. So every single one of my clients recommended another client to me. So each client knew at least one other client. And it's a great way, it's a great way of having clients because no one wants to be that person that, you know, if I recommended you to someone else and then you did a terrible job to that person, that not only is bad for you, but it makes me look bad as well.
Yeah.
And it has a detrimental effect. So you know, when you're, especially when you're looking at referrals, you need, you know, I don't refer anyone that I haven't worked with.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, you know, and there are plenty of people that do, but I think that's quite a short-sighted way of doing business. So that's why basically, if there's someone in the group that I don't directly know, it's because one of the other admins does, or it's someone else in the group knows them and they've invited them in.
Okay.
So people can look the group up, and you can obviously join, but then you go through a process of answering a couple of questions. One, because it helps us stop, you know, people coming in that shouldn't be in, because most people won't be bothered to go through that process. And two, it's because if people can give us a little bit of help around them, they then come into the group. We say, right, so in fact, when we're done here, I've got to write a post to welcome all the people that have joined this week. They get to pitch and say what they do in the group the week that they arrive. And then every Friday after that, there's a pitch. So you just literally put #pitch, and then you write what you're doing. So I sell this, I sell that, I offer this service, I offer this help, etc. And then we've now started, last month was the first month, but we've now started running a networking meeting for an hour a month on the 4th Tuesday of the month between 9 and 10 p.m. Because again, a lot of people with kids, they need to get them in bed, or if there's a lot of webinars or trainings, they normally go on till around 9 o'clock-ish. So we thought, well, an hour where you can turn up, completely relaxed, turn up in a t-shirt or your jumper like we're in.
Yeah.
So very much all about how we operate.
Yeah.
I did a post yesterday, actually. I did a live and I was wearing a shirt. So I let everyone know that I was poshing it up yesterday, because I don't wear shirts very often. But.
Yeah, I wear a shirt for work. I wouldn't say that I dress smart, but I dress cash smart. But yeah, I always wear a t-shirt on the weekend. I actually, yesterday, I was looking up some print on demand products and I got a bit excited because I was like, well, the prices aren't actually that much. I just started putting things that I've drawn on shirts and I was like, why not? Because why not? So cool. Yeah, that's what I spent yesterday doing.
You need to let everyone know in the group, Shona.
What, that's what I do?
That's what your pitch should be on a Friday.
Yeah, maybe I will. I am actually starting a new, I don't have time to talk to you about it now, but I am actually starting a new business thing to do with art and like helping parents that basically feel like they're run rugged and they don't know what they're doing and they're tired, but it feels a bit rubbish to say that you don't know what you're doing when you're a parent, but I think that's realistic and a lot of people feel like that. So it's a safe space where they can come and it's called Art Escape. I just started a new Facebook group and it'll be like different art activities just to help you just relax and take some time for yourself. So yes, that is a new thing that I'm working on.
Well, that's another reason why you should say that in our group, because I know we've got two friends in the group. One, she's an artist, and the other one, she's a graphic designer. So I'm sure they'd be interested in that as well.
Excellent. And you've mentioned the vinyl stickers. I need a new sticker for my car, so I'm going to message you later and ask who that person is as well.
Yeah, cool. No worries. Happy to help.
Connecting, right?
But this is it, and this is the big thing. I mean, I learned about networking from a very young age because we used to go on business trips with my mum and dad. My dad taught us, well, to be fair, both parents taught us about the importance of networking, and you know, you never know who can help you out and where they can help you. So I've always been massive on networking, and you know, the more you network, the more opportunities pop up. You know, and you might not be able to take an opportunity today, but there might be an opportunity later on. We've got another JV business that we're looking at building up, and that opportunity isn't going to be for at least another year or two. But we've got the people in place just because we've started having the conversations.
That's amazing that
so
you're thinking something so far ahead.
Yeah, well, the trouble is it's the way I think, and it's the way my brain works, because we've had this conversation that our brains work slightly differently anyway because of X, Y, and Z. But the way I look at things is that when you get to the point where you need to be doing something, it's too late to be thinking about it and prepping it. because you've already arrived. So the more you can prep. So, you know, I've said to Catty, I've already looked way ahead to what kind of house I want to get to, you know, what else we're doing in our lives, and where we can go with business stuff. And I'm now really, really lucky that I'm involved in a load of charity work, and it's with a bunch of other people. Because in the past, I've always done it on my own and just donated a bit, or, you know, I've got sponsorship, like sponsored bike ride or something.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, that's really cool. Now I'm working with a bunch of people that it's just incredible, and it's across the globe. And I'm very, very fortunate to be sat around with those people. But it now means that I can do what I've always wanted to do, which is make a difference across the world, not just, you know, me individually here and there sporadically. So
fantastic. Cool. Right. If you had to give out this one little message to the world that you really wanted people just to learn, or even just a thought to think about to help them move forward, what would that be?
Ooh, it's a good one. I think I've got a couple, and they revolve around. It's kind of the same, but it revolves around business and personal, because it touches on both. So a lot of people in business chase money. They go into business because they want to make money, and they chase the money, and they should be chasing the relationships. If you want to chase something, chase the relationships. Get out and network and meet people. And the money, in my experience with business, I've built up networks around what I'm doing, and the money always flows later on. And, you know, it's hard and it's difficult, but you need to do that, because no one just arrives somewhere and gets helped out and gets a handout. And if you do, you end up getting quite a hollow victory when you kind of achieve. So you need to go through that struggle and that pain to get through the other side, and it helps you grow as a person. But the second part of that is, I'm a big believer in helping others. I've done it to my detriment a lot of my life. I've helped a lot of friends at various times in my life, and when I've kind of asked for a bit of help back, they haven't always been that forthcoming. So I'm very careful about who I offer that help to now. So it's but helping others is very satisfying. And it doesn't have to be, you know, a lot of people challenge your own thought process, I think, is probably what I'm trying to say. Is meet other people, you learn from other people, because other people look at things differently. So you and I, obviously, we look at a lot of things in a very similar way, but there'll be certain things that we look at completely differently, and that's fine, and that's not an issue. But what will happen is, as we're chatting about one thing and you say, oh, do you agree with this? And I go, well, actually I don't, because I think about it this way. Or yes, I agree with it, but have you thought about this? And it means that you're then gaining some more understanding and some more learning. And it gets, you know, I spent basically 20 years making sure that I wasn't hurting anyone with how I led my life. But I used to be an extreme skier, and I led a pretty wild lifestyle when I was a lot younger. And it took me reflecting back 2 years ago at the age of 43 to realise that I'd actually been hurting my mum quite a lot, because she'd been so worried about me. I mean, I used to throw myself off 30, 40-foot cliffs skiing, and I had a complete death wish. As long as I was getting that adrenaline hit, I lived day by day as if it was going to be my last, because I had to deal with death at quite a young age, and it affected me because I never talked to anyone about it. But at the age of 43, I sat down with my mum and I actually apologised to her for putting her through all that stress, because I never realised it. I thought, well, it's my life, I'm doing what I want. And I didn't understand, you know, like I said, I never hurt anyone, I never intentionally hurt anyone, but actually I spent the whole, you know, I spent 5 years of my life really hurting my mum. Luckily, she's pretty cool and she's forgiven me, so
that's good.
But yeah,
cool.
But she was quite surprised when I said it to her.
Yeah.
So, but it took me all that time to look back on it. So it's, you know, the other thing is, you use your hindsight where you've done things wrong or you've got things wrong. Use that hindsight to help create your foresight and not making the same mistakes twice.
Yes, which you said earlier. I don't know if that was when we were recording, but that was a pact that you made to yourself. It's okay to
Yeah,
make mistakes, but only do it once, right?
exactly.
Exactly. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to be in touch with you a little bit later for those other things that I just mentioned. So thank you very much. And I hope you have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciated it.
See you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.